In this video, I'm going to go over how I like to draw arms in an appealing way, hopefully showing you a simpler way to look at the anatomy of the arm, making you an arm drawing master. So, I'm going to go over anatomy and simplification, how you can study real-life reference to inform your drawings, then I'm going to quickly study another artist's drawings to really show the parts of the arm, and then I'm going to do some of my own drawings to really show the flexing and extending of the arm. That way you can pose your arms in many different ways. So just simplifying down the arm, I like to look at it as three main parts. There's the shoulder, the upper arm, and the forearm. They all interlock opposite to each other, almost like a chain link. This will make more sense in a second. So within each of these three parts, there are of course separate muscles. There's obviously a lot of intricacies that we could go over, and if that's your style, definitely go and do a deep dive studying that type of stuff so you can show it in your work. Me personally, I really love a more stylized look, where I kinda only show a few main muscles, or how I see them is almost like masses. I won't even bother going into muscle names just because it'll overcomplicate things. So within the forearm, I like to break it down to two main muscles. There's the outer mass and the inner mass. So with the arm resting straight downwards, the outer mass connects to the outer part of the upper arm, while the inner mass connects to the inner part of the upper arm, both connecting about near the elbow. Another simplification I like to show in my work is the forearm generally tends to be blocky near the wrist just because it's more bony there, and then more cylindrical near the elbow where the muscle masses are driving the shape more. For the upper arm, there's the bicep and the tricep. The biceps on the front part of the arm and the triceps on the back. And the bicep actually connects to the front of the forearm in between the middle of the two masses that I previously mentioned, and the tricep actually does the same on the back side. And so now you see my chain link reference is kind of starting to take shape because as you can see, they're kind of interlocking just like a chain opposite of each other. Now moving on to the shoulder or the deltoid, it's a little bit different. When I draw it and simplify it, I really do like to see it as one main muscle, but with more muscular or defined characters, you'll actually be able to see that there are three distinct muscles being the front, side, and rear delt. So the deltoid connects in on the outer part of the upper arm. Just like the upper arm did with the forearm, the delt is connecting in between the bicep and the tricep. With really defined muscular people, you'll actually sometimes see the separation between the deltoid and the upper arm. Now, getting into some studies, I'll do some drawovers to show how my breakdown applies to real-life arms. Continuing with the same color code, something I think is really important to note again is the simplification of the forearm, and how it transitions from the muscular, more cylindrical part near the elbow to the more geometric, boxy wrist area. This also applies to other areas in the body that are more bony, like the ankle. Conversely, more muscular areas really do change a lot in form while flexing, which is why when someone with big biceps flexes, it grows a lot, but if someone who doesn't have much muscle mass flexes, there won't be much difference. And while that's a pretty simple concept that's been written into many people's subconscious, a lot of artists actually don't take this into account that much when actually articulating these forms. And then here I just drew a quick chain link to reiterate the thought process on the chain thing. I did that because this arm that I just drew over to the right really showed the chain example really well. Another thing I quickly want to emphasize with these two drawovers is with the lower examples, with the left one being quite slim and the right one having a decent amount of muscle mass but nothing hugely significant. Although I definitely would simplify these arms to something way more stylized and simple personally, I want to show how there definitely is still muscle there and where that muscle would be for arms a little less muscular like these ones. I really think this is an important part to take out of these drawovers. When arms are not as muscular, I actually found it harder to articulate them because there are no clear curves to indicate. You may be inclined to just put a couple straight lines because they seem somewhat straight with not much curvature. But because you understand the underlying anatomy, you can very subtly apply that knowledge to make the arm still feel believable, as I did with the left arm. Very subtle shifts in the silhouette, notable on the tricep, bottom of the forearm, top of the forearm near the elbow, and the bicep near the elbow. Another thing to keep in mind, especially if you feel like your arms are coming off kind of flat, is to utilize line overlap. This will add depth in the drawing. For example, in the bottom left image, her upper forearm line overlaps the bicep line, because that's where the upper forearm goes. If I had just shown that red line simply stopping and connecting with the green line that indicates the bicep, it would flatten the drawing. The line overlap is crucial to form indication, but understanding the form is step number one. Okay, so that's the way I simplify the arm. So now if we take this knowledge and look at other artists' drawings, we'll be able to see how this translates into their work. Although there's many different styles an artist can use, the underlying anatomy keeps the drawing believable. After understanding the overall anatomy of the arm, the last thing you'll need in your arsenal is understanding how to pose the arm differently while flexing and stretching the muscles. I'll try my best to show all of the main parts in different positions. So when I'm drawing arms, and any body part for that matter, what I'm mainly thinking about is how the masses of the arms interact with each other. I keep in mind how they squash and how they stretch, as well as how they overlap. In this first one, because of the way the elbow is flexed, the bicep is definitely going to be flexing. And then because of how the wrist is flexing, the inner forearm will be flexed as well. Lastly, the arm is raised up, so the front and side delt are going to be flexed too. Something we know is that the delt connects to the outer arm in between the bicep and the tricep. And so from this angle, because the arm is kind of turned away from us, the connection would be behind the arm. The bicep also connects on the front part of the arm, so we're going to see it connecting underneath the delt in front of the arm. So I show that overlap of the bicep by putting the line for the bicep right in front of the delt. For the bicep and the inner forearm muscle, neither of them really overlap each other, so I'll articulate that by just a fold line where the inner elbow would be. For this next arm, I am really wanting to emphasize the flex tension of the tricep. So I'm making a stylistic choice to make it super chunky, partially to show you guys what I mean by flexing and stretching, and partially because it looks cool. Then I'm flexing the wrist frontwardly, which is flexing the outer forearm. Honestly, I probably should have articulated the flexion in a better way for this forearm. If I could go back, I'd probably make the inner forearm have less girth in comparison to the front, because they look pretty equal right now, and that makes the forearm read as relaxed. And again, for the delt, the arm is actually down, so most of the delt is chilling, but the arm is being slightly pushed back, so the rear delt is firing. And then this last drawing, it actually gets a little complicated, but hang on, hopefully it'll make sense in a second. So it's a guy in the bottom position of a push-up. So his tricep and his front delt are flexing because those are both muscles that contribute to pushing movements. I'll show the bicep as squashed, but we'll try to show it as somewhat relaxed because technically the bicep isn't flexed, other than for stabilization reasons. Then, because the arm is extended behind the body, the rear delt is actually in a shortened position. Again, kind of like the bicep, it's not necessarily flexed, but it is bundled up. The way I would explain this is it's kind of similar how to everyone's stomachs are bundled up when they're bent over, even though there's not always necessarily ab flexion. And then here's one final draw over so you can hopefully understand my chicken scratch. I really hope my explaining made sense and helped you grasp arms better, even if it's only a little bit. I remember when I learned how to first draw arms because it was the first anatomy subject I tried to tackle, and it was a really freeing moment. I still really didn't have a great grasp on anatomy and still struggle with it because it's so intricate, but I think getting a better grasp on this fundamental really opens you up to expressing yourself and your creativity. I'm thinking I might want to make a series out of this and keep going over my simplifications of anatomy to help you guys and myself really ingrain an easier shorthand for it. Let me know in the comments an anatomy simplified you guys would want to see. Thanks for watching. Peace.